Battery-powered electric vehicles are literally shocking the world, appealing to a fast-growing group of price and environmentally conscious consumers.
It wouldn't be a modern consumer electronics show without a flurry of new electric vehicles. And while some of the flashy prototypes might never make it to market, the technology under their hoods could improve electric cars everywhere.
Sales of electric vehicles are way up in Colorado. In fact, they've doubled over the same period last year.
Tesla briefly flashed a sketch of its upcoming pickup truck. Singapore is bringing new meaning to going green by rolling out these so-called blue cars.
Kia Motors will launch the all-electric Genesis luxury sedan in 2021.
China is the world's largest auto market, and electric vehicles are clearly the car of the future. Beginning in 2019, 1 in 10 cars sold in China will be electric.
It wouldn't be a modern consumer electronics show without a flurry of new electric vehicles. And while some of the flashy prototypes might never make it to market, the technology under their hoods could improve electric cars everywhere. Batteries in modern EVs won't always take you as far as gasoline, and filling a tank takes way less time than charging, even with special hardware to speed up the process. But Fisker says its newest car will include flexible solid-state batteries that could deliver more power and range than lithium-ion cells, while taking up the same amount of space and taking less time to charge. This would also be useful for just about anything that uses rechargeable batteries, not just vehicles. For today's lithium-ion cars, AeroVironment is showing off a new charger the company claims will top up more batteries faster. And Continental is teasing inductive charging, similar to wireless charging for cell phones, but scaled up. It could be as efficient as some of today's plug-in standards, providing almost 40 hours of range per hour of charging. Car makers are hoping advances like these make the EV market more appealing for US drivers. For all the hype, electric vehicles still make up less than 1% of US vehicles.
Sales of electric vehicles are way up in Colorado. In fact, they've doubled over the same period last year. Tonight, Sean Boyd shows us why so many buyers are going electric.
I certainly was an early believer.
When Evan Fryerich bought a Nissan Leaf 2 years ago, he was among a handful of people in the entire state to own an electric vehicle. Today, Colorado has the 4th fastest electric vehicle market in the country. And by 2025, it's estimated 1 million Coloradans will be driving EVs.
I love the car, and I love the statement it makes. I'm for cleaner energy.
Fryerich part of what Will Tour calls a revolution in transportation electrification. Why are electric vehicles taking off now?
And electric vehicles are just getting to be longer range and are getting to be cheaper. Put those two things together and pretty soon there's not going to be a reason to have gasoline vehicles.
It's a second industrial revolution, but for cars.
Boulder's Nigel Zeed is Nissan's #1 electric vehicle salesman in the country. He says 4 years ago, Boulder Nissan sold 80 electric vehicles a year. Today, it sells 80 a month and is sold out of the 2017 Leaf after offering a $10,000 rebate on top of a $5,000 state tax credit and $7,500 federal incentive. Fryerich bought his car for $14,000 brand new.
So that it's largely maintenance free?
It's warranted for 100,000 miles. After that, battery replacement is $5,500. But Zeed says batteries are getting cheaper and cleaner. Right now, they're made of heavy metals like lithium.
But there's solid-state batteries are coming out now. There's zinc air batteries, carbon nanotube. There's a product called graphene.
Today's batteries are also longer lasting. Newer models can go more than 200 miles on a charge.
This is going to put about 20 to 25 miles per hour of charge back into the car. And if you want to do it in, say, half an hour from empty, you'd use something like this, a DC fast charger.
These superchargers will begin appearing on major interstates next year.
This is an emerging market, and so Colorado wants to get out in front of that.
XL planning for the increased demand, too. Current trends show most people charge at night when wind is abundant and demand low.
It's hard to anticipate really the instantaneous demand of what we'll see, but we're ready to provide it.
It's really incumbent upon us as a state to make sure that we are both supporting that transition and that we're ready for that transition.
Sean Boyd covering Colorado First.
The big car companies are really investing in electric vehicles. Volvo announced it will produce only electric vehicles in the next 2 years. GM will roll out 20 new electric models in the next 5 years. Even Shell Oil is now investing in charging stations.
The next generation Tesla Roadster stole the show on November 16th, even as the company introduced its first ever semi. Both vehicles are impressive, but the new product announcement didn't stop there. Tesla briefly flashed a sketch of its upcoming pickup truck. It's a mammoth of an EV, but stands very little chance of ever becoming a mainstream vehicle. Recent comments suggest 2 upcoming pickups from the company, including a model that could be much bigger than a Ford F-150.
A little shocker this week for drivers in Vaughan. Drivers of gas-powered cars suddenly found themselves getting ticketed for parking in the electric vehicle parking spots at Vaughan Mills. The GM tells us the spots recently became active in the last 2 or 3 days. Well, that is not the only shock that drivers are feeling this week. How about that cold? It's hard enough on humans, but what about its effect on the electric car? Well, joining me now to talk about it is CEO of Plug and Drive, Kara Clairman. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So as any cell phone user will tell you, they know what the cold does to the battery. It dies really quickly. What about the electric car?
So what you'll find is you will have a reduced range compared to a regular, what we call a perfect EV day, like no heat, no air. That's the ideal day. So what you're going to see is if it's, 0, -5, you're not going to see a significant impact. Where you see the really significant impact is what we've got today, like -20. Then you will see a drop in your battery range as much as 30-40%.
That sounds quite significant. In terms of distances, what does that mean?
So, for example, I drive a Chevy Bolt, and that has 400 kilometers of range on a perfect day. In a day like today, I'm going to get something like 230 kilometers.
So you drive an electric vehicle. How do you find the battery life is when it's this cold?
Well, you know what? There is a significant hit to the battery life. However, it's not as crazy as one might think. I think if you were to preheat your engine a bit, that keeps it going for a while.
If you're a person who's taking a long road trip on a -20 day, then, of course, then you do have something to think about.
Say if you're visiting family over the holidays.
Right.
What about speeds? Does that mean you can top out less when it's colder than when it's a normal EV day?
Well, that's true. Driving at any time. So if you drive faster, of course, you burn through your fuel more quickly. True for gas cars, and it's true for EVs as well. So when it's this cold, to manage your range, you might drive, a little closer to the speed limit.
Just the fact that you see something like a 40% drop in weather like today, would you say that electric cars simply aren't Canadian climate friendly?
I wouldn't say that at all. Again, you have to remember that most of us only drive 30 or so kilometers a day. So for most of us, the range is going to be plenty. By no means are these cars not suitable for winter. I have to say, actually, their traction in winter is amazing because they have that really heavy battery underneath, and that gives you great stability in the snow. So there's lots of benefits as well.
And they're certainly becoming more popular. In fact, the ministry tells us there's currently 16,000 electric vehicles currently on the road here in Ontario. So there you have it. It's not just humans being affected on a really bitter cold day like today.
Singapore is bringing new meaning to going green by rolling out these so-called blue cars. They're also an eco-friendly solution to reduce vehicle congestion and encourage the use of public transport. The 2-door hatchbacks run on French-made lithium metal polymer batteries that can cover around 200 kilometers on a full charge. Around 80 of them are up and running, along with 32 charging stations. The scheme adopts a point-to-point service, which means users don't have to return the cars to their original station. And operator Blue SG is taking customer experience a step further.
They enter their user details in terms of their favorite radio stations, favorite destinations, everything will be captured. So regardless whether if it is car A, car B or car C that they go into, all the full memory will be transferred to various cars. So every time when they rent a different car, it's like their own personalized car.
Blue SG hopes the unique service could boost its plan to add up to 1,000 cars and 2,000 charging stations by 2020. Blue Solutions, a subsidiary of France's Bolloré Group, is betting on Singapore's location to expand its fleet across the region.
This office will be the headquarters in Singapore to spread throughout Asia Pacific. It means that we will start from Singapore to try to develop with local partners and spread throughout Asia. There is no better place than Singapore to do it.
It's recently set up a global innovation center in the city-state for research and development and aims to create about 250 local jobs by 2021. With 2,000 people already signed up for the service, Singapore is on the right track to meeting its climate change goals set out in the 2015 Paris Agreement.
Battery-powered electric vehicles are literally shocking the world, appealing to a fast-growing group of price and environmentally conscious consumers. The question now is precisely when will electric cars leave their current luxury or green tech niches and enter the mainstream? WSJ Heard on the Street Steve Wilmot says that depends above all on relative cost. And on that front, electric vehicles have momentum. But since gasoline-powered vehicles may remain supreme for at least another decade, he says, investors still need to watch to ensure they don't get caught on the wrong side of history. The plummeting cost of batteries is key. The growth of mobile computing has driven massive investment in the area, improving the range of electric cars while reducing their production costs. And the industry already has a model to follow. Tesla is showing that there's consumer demand for well-designed electric cars, spurring nearly all the industry's incumbents from Detroit to Germany to Japan to invest heavily. General Motors is due to release its all-electric Chevrolet Bolt in the coming weeks at a post-tax price of $30,000, less than the average car sale price in America, though high for a compact. Tesla's much-hyped Model 3 is expected late next year at a slightly lower price. But retaining relevance and profits in the electric era will be a challenge for traditional car makers. However, that won't stop them from trying. Germany's big three, VW, Daimler, and BMW, have all unveiled new electric vehicle strategies this year. As a result, the next few years will bring about a flurry of launches to rival the Bolt and the Model 3. So how should investors tackle the biggest disruption the auto industry has encountered in decades? Shares in nearly all car makers, bar Tesla, are currently very cheap, both relative to their trading history and the wider market. And WSJ's Wilmot predicts that in time, the companies that survive the rapids of industrial change could be seen and valued more like tech companies.
Korea's top automaker Hyundai Motor Group has unveiled plans to increase its electric car lineup, aiming to be one of the world's top 3 electric car makers within the next 8 years. A senior Hyundai executive announced on Wednesday that Hyundai Motor and its affiliate Kia Motors are planning to increase their number of all-electric models from 2 to 14 by 2025. Hyundai Motor will launch an electric version of the Kona subcompact sport utility vehicle next year, while Kia Motors will launch the all-electric Genesis luxury sedan in 2021. The move comes as global rivals also gear up for large-scale production of electric cars.
This is one of the newest factories for Shenzhen-based BYD. It's a leader in the development of China's electric vehicles. In this factory, it is developing state-of-the-art electric buses. But the factory isn't in China. It's actually in Hungary.
Hungary has a very good investment environment. The government welcome the new technology, especially the electric bus technology, to come here to renovate the bus industry. And also locally we have a very good trained, skilled workers.
The BYD factory in Hungary opened earlier this year. The buses meet strict regulations set by the European Union. On a 5-hour charge, the buses can drive for about 300 kilometers. Another BYD factory is set to open in France.
Iron phosphate batteries made in China at the BYD center. And this is, I can say that we have the complete supply chain in-house at BYD, from the batteries to the complete vehicle. And these, I can say, are middleweight or lightweight batteries, and can drive the bus so far away.
China is the world's largest auto market, and electric vehicles are clearly the car of the future. Beginning in 2019, 1 in 10 cars sold in China will be electric. That's a requirement for large automakers recently set by the Chinese government. As it stands now, Chinese companies dominate the country's electric vehicle market. All of the top 5 electric car sellers in China are Chinese. Foreign automakers like Volkswagen and Nissan are racing to join in.
We will invest together with our 2 joint ventures about 10 billion euros in that period to develop these new energy vehicles, to industrialize that in our plants, develop the people and so on.
What we want is bring all our knowledge to the Chinese market, working with Chinese engineers, working with Chinese suppliers in order to bring a very affordable electric cars that should come to the market in 2019.
One of the barriers to increasing electric vehicle sales is cost. They're simply more expensive. Others are concerned about the materials used to build the cars themselves.
Automakers, on the other hand, has the responsibility to make sure that not only the fuel of the car, but also the material that are used to assemble the car is taken care of their environmental impact as well.
This is how China sees its near future. Blue skies and the soothing sound of electric vehicles roaming the city streets. Present day more often looks like this. Research shows that 1/3 of air pollution in China comes from petrol and diesel cars. That's why the government recently decided that traditionally fueled cars are a thing of the past. And like France and Britain, it wants to ban them in the next few decades. When Chen Dong bought his electric car 2 years ago, he didn't have to go through the license plate lottery, a government measure to limit traffic. He also got his car much cheaper because of a government subsidy of up to $15,000. And unlike petrol and diesel-fueled cars, he can drive in any part of the city, anytime he wants, as long his car has enough power.
Once I was about to go to a charging station, but my navigation led me to the wrong place. There was no charging station and not a single person around. I was forced to call a rescue team.
In China, more than 500,000 people bought an electric car last year. That's half of all electric cars sold worldwide, forcing the government to quickly build more charging stations. It's been hard to keep up with the demand, and car batteries often don't last much more than 200 kilometers.
Despite government incentives, electric cars are still not that popular here in China. Many consider them impractical and ugly, but producers are trying very hard to make electric cars more fashionable.
Car makers are increasingly pressured to produce electric cars. A recently announced attractive credit system allows companies to make money selling carbon credit quota to traditional car makers. But some experts believe the government's plan is unrealistic, and they question the benefits of electric cars.
If we want to replace all the traditional cars in the next 3 decades, this is a lie. This is a fundamentally, scientifically lie to the world.
Greenpeace sees China's rapid switch to electric cars as a positive step to combat climate change. But the environmental group says it's by far not enough, because 70% of the country's power plants are using coal, a major emitter of greenhouse gas.
If we really want a clean future and we really want to combat climate change, only pushing for electric vehicle is not enough. We need to at the same time push for a phase out of coal-fired power plants.
Saving the planet or not, for consumers like Chen Dong, driving an electric car is more about saving money than it's about reducing emissions. A campaign the government still needs to work on as well.